Some fountain again. We've walked a little way over now to Saint-Sourin, mainly 12th to the 14th century, although that mock romantic facade there was added in the 19th century. This was also a stop on the way to Compostela, and rather a nice gateway here. And use your pause button if you want to read any of these plaques. Just a couple of things to point out inside. How about that for a bishop's chair? These here are little alabaster plaques that I think were found somewhere and set into these frames at a later date. There are a lot of side chapels on one end, and each has a different altarpiece here, made out of marble, I presume. And there's the organ, and under the main altar is the sarcophagus of Saint Sourin. Right, I'm now sitting in this park just in front of the church, and so I know where it is. Finishing the sandwich. Now we've moved back towards the city centre now, and we're in Place Gambetta, and this is called the English Garden. Looks quite nice, doesn't it? During the Revolution, 300 people were guillotined in the square. And this 57, where Goya spent the last years of his life. Not many people know that. We're going to be heading down there soon. But just to give you an idea of where we are now, if we look back down this street here, we see the cathedral. On the way down that big street, we saw this little side street with the circular thing here. And just before we look at that, we'll look how these resistance fighters were shot by the Germans in 1944. And this market hall, I suppose you'd call it really, just seems to have been inserted into this round space. Looks quite modern, although I suppose it could be 20s. And round the next corner is this church of Notre Dame, which was built around 1700 by Michael Duplessis, and is described as having a fine Bernini-like facade. So we are now going to cut through this arcade here, back into Cours D'Intendance, turn left and head down towards the Grand Theatre. This is one of the star attractions of Bordeaux, with its 12 graces and muses lined up along the top of the portico there. This area of Bordeaux was planned by Louis de Tournai when intendant of Cayenne between 1743 and 1758. There's an old friend we've seen before, and we're now in Place de la Tour, where we can see a statue of that gentleman. And there, that brasserie is where I had my coffee that day. It's very interesting, isn't it? And we're heading back down here now towards something else we've seen before, the monument to the Girondins. We're extending the tramway here. As we said before, this monument commemorates the Girondins, who were the moderates of the revolution, and they were executed in 1792. This monument went up around 1900, and there are several stories about why it disappeared and reappeared. There it says that it was commissioned by some local government agency for the scrap during the war, others that the Germans requisitioned it and it was hidden by the partisans and reassembled during the 60s. Either way, there are some very nice sculptures incorporated into the arrangement. Don't forget to use your paws if you want to read these plaques. That there explained how Bordeaux was English for 300 years. Now we've come down to the river end of the Esplanade de Quinconce, and they've got those columns there which are very similar to Leningrad and no doubt several other places. Now along the side of the river, as we've mentioned before, these roadworks or construction works extend all the way along, right up to the east, where we haven't really seen much, and looking the other way right down to that big bell tower that we saw earlier, right down to the station. And there of course again is the Pont de Pierre with its 17 arches commemorating Napoleon's 17 victories. Now there's the Bus Maritime, which we haven't seen before, and note that hotel, or what used to be a hotel, there. Well, that last building was the first American consulate, and just down the road and round the corner, here we are. Heading down here to our last church, and we just happened to notice in this little niche here the Protestant Tabernacle, I think they call it. Some antique shops in this district, and of course we've got restoration again. Some more common market money, I suppose. And coming up now, we've got a place called 10 Dowling Street, get it? And another market hall. Anyway, that's the end of a busy day.